So this was basically regarding the different components of development. So there was emotional development, there was language development, cognitive development, and physical development. And it was about each age in a person's lifetime, more so when they're an infant. So for instance, if they're 2 months old, their emotional development will be very different compared to when they're at 12 months of age. That holds true for language development, for cognitive development, and physical development. There are some exceptions to this, obviously. For instance, when there's a child with learning disability, or let's say there's a child who has not been born normal. So then these milestones, these developmental landmarks, they do not account for them. They have different criteria than in all these ages. Okay, so that's a different set of milestones that we are not discussing. They're not for this course. But when you know the normal, then it becomes easier for you to understand what would happen when it's not normal. So at 2 months of age, for instance, I'll not go through all of these. So for like if the child is 2 months of age, they start to smile. This is an emotional development. Okay, they won't do this before 2 months. They might do it, but mostly it's known to be at 2 months of age. So variations exist. They may show signs of calming themselves, like bringing hands to their mouth to suck on them. They try to look at their parent, so they'll gaze, and their gaze will go towards the parent, wherever the parent is moving. Language development, so they'll just make cooing or gurgling noises. If they don't, it's okay. So every child has their own um, milestone, what pediatricians now say. So no one milestone is going to be a copy pasted thing for all the other children. Okay, so that you need to pay you need to understand that. And then there's cognitive development as well, which and where they pay attention to faces, recognize people from a distance, and follow things, sorry, with their eyes. And they start to cry and get fussy if they're bored when activity doesn't change. And then physical development happens when they're more refined movements with arms and legs, and they're able to hold their head up, and they may start to push up when they're on their tummies. That's why they've recommended tummy time so much as soon as they're born. So these will always be changing for, like, if, as I said, if there's a child and the child has, for instance, learning disability, or even if there's a prematurity in that child born before 9 months of age, there will be changes to that. Okay, so this was about that. Just have a read of it. It is helpful when you know the normal, and then you know what is not normal. So we had done till this slide, and now we are going to continue from here on. So now we're going to identify the key changes from birth to old age that affect health and well-being. I will encourage you all. How many are you? 5 of you. You're less yesterday. I hope everyone's got the link. Anyways, so so any question in between, please feel free to ask. Okay, and yeah. So nature is what we think, and this is known as a pre-wiring. And you have genetic inheritance and other biological factors, such as um, there's a person with a calm nature, and then uh, that the child inherits from some of their adults. If there's anxiety in the genes, they inherit that anxiety. So this is true for all factors. This is not just nature by nature. I don't only mean how you behave. It's also other factors, other influences, your personality, uh, all of this is influenced the way, most of this is influenced, and not all of it is influenced the way that we develop from childhood through adulthood. So whatever we are seeing in our surroundings, nurture is something very different. Okay, it's taken as influence of external factors after the child is born. So these are life experiences, these are lived experiences, and how an individual learns through their years of learning. Nature is different, that's more genetic. Nurture is more about your environment, the social ties that we have. So a person who's born in um, conflict, for instance, they are not nurtured the way a person is born in a conflict free country or a conflict free zone. You have your surrounding culture, the way you have the whatever culture you have, you will develop habits, and um, that culture will influence you. So when we see at the biological, at the tiny molecule level, aging results when there's accumulation of a wide range of molecular and cellular damages over time. We've talked about it. Okay, this happens when we are reaching the late adolescent and the adult age, and where there's greater risk of disease and then ultimately death. So sometimes when you're young, you can fight diseases because you have the power, um, you have the immunity, or you have the capability, or you're strong enough to fight those diseases. But when you're older, you can't really do that. Have a look at this additional reading if you want to go through it. There's a link that is shared with you over here. This is approaches to psychology. So there's one end, there's nature, which is more biological. Okay, and to the other end there's nurture, which is more in terms of behavior, like how does the person what does the person see in their environment, what do they learn from their environment. If there's a person who's born genetically with anxiety, if they've been given a calm environment to live in and to thrive in, they turn to be calm, they turn to be less anxious. Okay, and vice versa. So I'm not going to in depths of this, but this is just additional if you want to learn more about nature and nurture. Moving forwards, there's developmental norms and milestones that we can talk about. Um, just want to see if recording, if, yeah, being recorded. So here we're talking about normal developmental norms and milestones. We talked a bit about them. This is why I shared that chart with you. Okay, so when a child grows, their physical growth, their social growth, and their emotional growth, they're all considered as developmental milestones. Children will develop at their own pace, as I said earlier. There are certain developmental milestones that we need to make sure that we know about, so that we know that if the child is going in the right direction or is going below what is expected from them. So the children generally reach this by a specific age. So a child smiling for the first time, saying their first word, or taking their first steps are all considered as developmental milestones. So they help parents. They help these milestones help parents, health care providers, and teachers to monitor a child's development and to assist in identifying. So there's special needs child, they have their own developmental milestones that a parent should know, a healthcare provider should know, and a teacher should know. Okay, and then they give certain interventions, whichever need to be there in place. Why are they important? As I said earlier, it's to keep track of time. It's to see if there's an intervention, how has that supported that child. If there's speech therapy or physical therapy, for instance, if there's children who reach certain milestones earlier than others, while some reach them later than others, that's normal. Um, while saying that, it is still expected that children reach their developmental milestones around the same age. That is not always the case. So the different types, I mentioned them earlier. So these are there again for parents, teachers, and healthcare professionals to monitor any changes or any issues that they need to tweak a bit in terms of their development. So there are different checks that you are included in them. So that during the first a child's first year of life, there are many critical milestones that are achieved, and the four main types of developmental milestones: physical, cognitive, social, emotional, and sometimes communication is also taken into consideration. Okay, so physical milestones are gross motor skills and fine motor skills. Okay, gross were those that are first developed. Okay, so they're developed earlier than the fine motor skills. Think about a child who's using their large muscle groups, such as their legs, such as their arms, and they're not going to write initially. You can't expect a 1 month old to write, but they can lift their neck. So there's a set of muscles that are there that are working together, and this makes the child roll over. Um, they can do this by 6 months, crawling, which doesn't need help. By 12 months, again, the variation exists. Fine motor skills are developed later, and they require the use of small muscle groups, such as the fingers. They have their grasps. They hold pencils. They hold crayons. You can't expect a child to be writing at a young
Yeah, where do
age.
you find it?
Hello. So this
Imagine, and I
occurs. This
was looking for it.
this mostly occurs between 12 and 15 months. So then they start using utensils, they use the fork, the spoon, and then they'll not be as fine as they should be. Then that variation exists again. Physical development delays are generally noticeable during the first year of life of a child, and you may see a delay if they fail to develop control over their head and neck. They have delayed sitting, crawling, walking. They have a limp body posture. Additionally, muscle spasms or muscle stiffness may be a sign of a physical development delay. Okay, then there's cognitive. So we've done physical. Cognitive is more in terms of their thinking. So these refer to a child's developmental abilities when they in terms of their thinking and to solve problems. Okay, so a child is very
Don't you
matter of
want your dick in me ever
fact.
again? I said no, I don't want.
Um, Please try and mute yourselves whenever you're in the classroom, please. Yeah. If you forget, it's okay. I'm trying to do the same. Cognitive milestones, they result from a child exploring their environment and forming conclusions. So a child, they're very honest. Children are very honest in terms of, I forgot what I was saying. Anyways, um, so cognitive milestones are they develop with the years of life that a child sees around them. So if this is why they say talk in front of a child, so their cognition improves. Nowadays, we are seeing a lot of internet addiction in children, where they're not using books as they were using before, which then reduces their cognitive abilities, which then reduces their curiosity, their attention span, their speaking powers. So the more the child is introduced to screens at an earlier age, the more you see a reduction. You see more reduction in these cognitive milestones. So they develop these, but at a later stages where they're talking, but they're not talking um, complete, or they're not actually speaking at the um, at the age that they should be speaking in. Okay, and then we come after physical and cognitive. Now we have um, the social and emotional milestone. Okay, social and emotional milestones will be again socializing, how they express their emotions. Some children will cry, some children will remain silent, um, and some children, most of the children are very social. They smile, A child may show signs of social and emotional developmental delays if they struggle with carrying on a conversation, understanding social cues, or have difficulty managing their emotions. A child may have an emotional developmental delay if they throw frequent, long lasting tantrums or if they are difficult to calm down. So, different again, it varies in families and children. Communication and language milestones. So, again, children, how they're spoken to, they develop the same communication. Children are capable of learning, I don't remember the number of languages, but there were a lot. um, a child under the age of 5 years is able to learn a lot of languages. My children, they know two languages now. And I regret that I know three languages. Why did I not teach them the third language that I knew? But yeah, it's the you can teach them as much language as you want to. um, and that improves their vocabulary, that increases their improves their it stimulates their brain. So sometimes you may hear a lot of teachers being concerned that the child has to learn English, and if they're learning other languages it's not being helpful and they're not focusing on one language. But when they're in their school, they're learning Spanish language as well. Why does that come in between then? So according to researchers, it is always best to teach the child, to help them be multilingual. They know many languages and that improves their brain connectivity. Okay, and they learn a lot through this. And children who have language delay, uh, they don't understand the meaning of words, that it means that way. And the more you speak to a child, the more they learn, the more they will speak as well. And the way you speak to the child, that is also how they learn. Now we come towards analyzing how each development area has an impact on the other. As I said, nature and nurture, we talked about that. So, nature has an impact on your development, nurture has an impact on your development as well. Nature will be more genetic, nurture will be according to the environment. So, when working with children and young people, it is very important to understand different kinds of influences that will have an impact on their development. Although development is often divided into different headings, it is very, very important to remember that these areas are always going to be interconnected and they link with one another. So, developing physically and refining physical skills will also impact the pupils or the child's ability to become independent, socialize, and grow more in confidence. There's several examples that we have to share how different aspects of development can impact each other. Most of the time there will be an impact, and then when you see a child, for instance, if they have a language barrier, so they're coming from a foreign language as their first language, first one, or late development of speaking, this can stop other children from playing or talking to this child. So if they have the same language as the rest of the children, so it is known that they might have a lower self-esteem if they don't know the same language as the rest of the children, which may impact their social and behavioral development. This is just one set of researchers that the other set of researchers says something else. But it is generally that way because even if you speak to a person who's not of your language, you would not want to communicate for very long with them because there's no point communicating when you don't know each other's language. But then there are exceptions where it does click and then it turns out to be very positive as well. Another example, maybe if a child is overweight and struggling to be involved in physical exercise or physical activity, there may be other children who bully them and they feel embarrassed, they lose confidence. So their physical growth or the physical structure has an impact on their self esteem or their emotional and social development. And then, if a child is disabled, it can impact their physical, social, and intellectual development again. So, if the child can't walk, they spend more time learning, and this will positively impact his intellectual development. Also, leave him confused, not being able to understand why is he different from others. So there is an impact on the physical environment, physical development, and the emotional or intellectual development. Other examples: when a child doesn't understand why he needs to share his mom's attention with his new brother or sister, the child may feel let down, angry, isolated, which may lead to problems in his emotional, social, and behavioral development. But a new baby can also mean feelings, can also have feelings, and they're learning to share or taking care of another family member. They're building up confidence, which will affect emotional and social development. Then there's language development. So communication is key, and they're closely related to the importance of language development, and it's linked to learning. So children's language develops through being talked to, by being listened to, by being praised and encouraged. You talk positive, the child will have a positive impact. It will reduce anxiety. It will reduce um, their it will improve their confidence. Intellectual development, so children and young people's intellectual development will always depend on, to a wide extent, on their own experiences and the opportunities that they are given from their earliest stages. um, and they'll have thinking skills. Imagination is a part of the child's cognitive development, so children use their imagination for pretend plays, to tell stories. The recent research has suggested the more a child is bored, the more they have chances of imagining things, and I mean in a positive way. And the more they imagine things, they are more creative. So do not give them screens, even if you have to struggle because of that. Um, Poverty and deprivation. So that's an adverse impact that can have an adverse impact on the child to grow, and on their other psychological, emotional, and other milestones that are involved. That's the end of this learning outcome. Any questions from this before I start sharing my screen for the second learning outcome? Any questions?
No, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. I'll just start sharing my screen for the second, which is not very long, this presentation. Uh, I'd encourage everyone to join if they can. So yeah, because we are starting the second learning outcome. So this learning outcome is related to understanding the potential impacts or effects of life factors and events on growth and development. Again, we are talking about how do these factors impact any person's growth, and development, the different life factors. So what do we mean by life factors? So they're biological influences, lifestyle, education, employment, socio-economic, their relationships, culture, physical environment, health, bullying, inspiration, etc. So the impacts may be illness, there may be disability, loss of focus, increase in focus, achievement, less achievement, need for support and guidance, access to services, etc. Some key terminologies that we can go through is understanding the potential impacts of life factors and events on growth and development. So as individuals, we go through life, uh, and there's health and well-being that is impacted by a number of different factors that will impact an individual's growth and development positively as well as negatively. So these include physical, emotional, social, economic, and environmental factors. Knowledge of these factors is very crucial, and it has an impact on their physical, intellectual, and other components as well. So we'll talk about different life factors and events that will affect growth and development. So there's environmental factors. You may have the place where you live in, poor or very good, or just mediocre. Availability of health and social care, childcare services. You might have them, you might not have them, and that they impact your growth and development. Pollution, which includes a lot of different types of pollution. You have noise pollution, you have air pollution, you have water pollution. Economic factors like income, wages, their benefits, their savings, bills, debts, poverty, clothing, there's food, because you can afford food. There's material possessions, there's things that you want, things that you need. Poor living conditions such as damp can lead to respiratory problems. There's overcrowding that can lead to anxiety, depression, stress. Poor heating or lack of heating can lead to colds, flu, poor health. And there's no open spaces or gardens. There's lower fitness levels from lack of exercise. Then coming towards the physical factors, so there's genetic inheritance that can be your eye color, your hair color, your height, for instance. And then there's another complex genetic inheritance factors like that may predispose you to certain genetic conditions such as cystic fibrosis. There's Down syndrome. There's diet, nutrition, hydration, including breastfeeding, bottle feeding, weaning. So these may have an impact on on your other components as well, on other aspects of your life. The amount and type of physical activity, for instance, the benefits of exercise versus risks of little or no exercise. Is there opportunity for play? Is there experience of illness or disease? And illness has physical effects. Some are short term and some are long term. There's disability also that can be there. Abuse is a very important factor. So there's different types of abuse that we can appreciate. So there's emotional, which has financial as well. There's physical, there's sexual, there's psychological, and there's neglect also, which has now been termed as abuse. Then there's negative effects of noise pollution, such as stress, anxiety, high blood pressure, disrupted sleeping patterns, hearing loss, etc. The social and emotional factors that can have an influence on your growth and development, such as gender, there's family type, there's size and lifestyle, relationships that include your family, with your parents, your relationship with your parents, your siblings. ACE is very important. It's known as adverse childhood experiences, okay? And it has a great impact on your growth and development. Abuse, including controlling or coercive behavior in the family, or personal intimate sexual relationships, educational experiences, employment. They all have an impact on what I'm trying to say is that they all have an impact on, these are all factors that may impact your growth and development. So what ACE is, it's adverse childhood experiences. They're traumatic experiences that occur before the age of 18 years and can affect the individuals as they grow older. So they may be abusers themselves when they're older, or they may develop extreme psychiatric conditions because of that. Then there are relationships that have positive or negative impacts. There's trustworthiness. There's if there's trust in a family relationship, it gives you more positivity. There's some relationships that can hurt your feelings. They give a negative impact and then can increase your anxiety levels and can reduce your confidence. This is a very good figure that explains the potential impacts of life factors and events on growth and development of individuals. So it shows the different factors, again, that can have an impact on the different life factors, and different events that can impact your growth and development. So for instance, if people are living for, let's take the example of communities. So when COVID-19 happened, these community connections, these social contexts, they all got disrupted because we had to observe more isolation. And when COVID-19 happened, when the results came out, there was a surge or a high rise in suicides, people committing suicides. And the number one reason for that was loss of these connections, loss of social interaction. So we were trying to save our, a lot of them were because of social ties being disrupted, because of making allowing people to observe social distancing. And then that is why there was the negative impacts of on their mental health. Economy, employment, and poverty, so they're all interconnected and they all have an impact on your growth and development. Then there are places where there's early years children and young people, there's more facilities there, there's some more services there, you have better chances of thriving there. Okay, and you're happy, you have a positive mental impact it has on it and you on you. Even then, when there's services, interventions, and projects, or there better healthcare, for instance, in urban environments there's better healthcare, it has a better impact on you and on your surroundings as well. 5 life factors on the that are mainly considered when you're considering the development of an individual: a genetic, which you can't take away. There's genes, there's nature, there's biological, such as the impact of diet, there's environmental, such as exposure to different types of pollution that we have already discussed, there's socio-economic, which includes education, there's employment, there's living standards, there's overcrowding, for instance, that's lack of facilities, for instance. Lifestyle is such as nutrition, such as your job, for instance. Coming towards one very important factor is the genetics. So genetic traits, they're passed down from parent to child and they go for generations. You can't really help them. If your father has hypertension, God forbid, you will have chances of having hypertension. So what happens then? You change your environment, you change your circumstances. Okay, people are born with diabetes because it runs in the families at times. So what do? You change your diet, you are more physically active then. This could have potentially an impact on their on your childhood, because children this age are usually very active. For instance, if there's a child, if there's a genetic illness like asthma that runs in the family, so the child doesn't can't stay active as other children, and they always need to be guarded because of the physical impact that that asthma may have on them. They may have an asthma attack, which can be lethal as well. So they're always going to be a limitation in whatever they do. But having said that, there are ways that you can change that. You can improve that situation. Biological is influence is that which can impact the child's development when firstly during pregnancy. So drinking heavily during pregnancy, smoking during pregnancy can have negative impacts. Okay, all of these are mentioned over here, and this is very, very well known through research. So it's not something that is not known. Intellectual development would have been affected by biological influences during childhood, and that is by affecting the child's progress of learning during their childhood. And this could be because during their mother's pregnancy, she was not mentally well, had maternal depression, for instance. Environment, very important cause of disease, disability. The air, the water, they're major sources of ill health. And this can have an impact when you're a child. So a child may not have had a stable learning environment when they were young, and this can have an impact on their intellectual development and their educational development as well. Being in an abusive environment, so environment is not only it's not only water, it's not only air that you breathe in, it's love also, it's nurturing as well. Okay, so if there's more love, there's more peace. That is known, obviously. And then where there's war, there's more there's more there's a place where there's always conflict. That has a negative impact on the development of a child. So the negative impact will not only be physical. Obviously, there's war. They don't have food to eat, but that will be emotional as well, obviously, and that will remain with them for the rest of their lives. Poor quality housing, its environment again, increasing the risk to crime in an unstable neighborhood. Always see your neighborhoods wherever you're living. If you want to have a peaceful environment, you need to see a good neighborhood where you want to live in. It's just not the house. Stress from overcrowding, noise, lack of privacy, poor facility, dampness, in the risk of associated infections is very common. Socioeconomic factors. So this could have a potential impact on childhood. Physical development can be impacted if there's a person who's coming from a low income family. Families have to struggle, and if they have children, it can impact their health, and they can be at risk of developing diseases between the ages of 4 to 9 years, because that's the peak age when the child is growing. But always consider the environment also becomes unsafe when your socioeconomic factors are impacted. So if you're not living in, you're very rich, let's say, okay, you have everything to provide to your family, and if your neighbors are not very good, that has a negative impact. So there's different factors that has a different impact on your growth and your development. So as I said, they're all intertwined. Families, financial stability, everything comes into play. Emotional, there's an emotional component in it. There's an intellectual development aspect in it, with regards to your socioeconomic factors, with regards to your environmental factors. And then we come to life events. We just left with a few slides. So lifestyle, it's your choice. Your diet is your choice. Your exercising is your choice. It has an impact, a very, very great impact. And these choices develop during childhood. So for instance, the emotional side of development during childhood is affected by lifestyle at home. For instance, if someone was sexually abused, did not have they had a traumatic experience when they're building a tree house with an adult. You may enjoy making the tree house, and the abuse affected because the abuser manipulated you at a vulnerable stage, stopping from enjoying that task anymore. So that that task, that activity is very enjoying. It's very positive, but then you don't have good memories because of it. Lifestyle can have an impact on your development by causing bad habits. So they affect you long term. For instance, during adulthood, if you begin to smoke, it's not because you're smoking at a young age, but because you socially interacted amongst adults, such as family, who smoked. And during childhood, this could have had an unhealthy diet. And as this began to develop more, these habits in lifestyle could be natural for the individual. Some major life events: there was war that happened, there was an incurable disease that happened, you were going smooth and suddenly this happened, your parent lost your job, you started drinking, all of a sudden. These are major life events that could happen, and that drinking happened because someone died in your family, someone very close. So intellectually, it could have an impact depending on the illness that you may be able to, you may not be able to understand things as you could before. This could be caused by old age as well as illness. Now we are coming to the last slide of our presentation. So now here we are trying to evaluate how nature and nurture impact the individual's physical, intellectual, emotional, and social development. So in nature, on a person's unique physical appearance, their personality, and their physiology. Nurture is defined as the environmental variables that impact a person, including their experiences in early childhood, family and social relationships, culture, and community. Both nature and nurture are very closely linked to the physiological concepts of empiricism and rationalism. So empiricists, as the science says, believe that the ultimate source of all concepts and knowledge is our sense experience, whereas a rationalist will hold the view that the content of concepts and knowledge may at times surpass the information that sense experience alone provides. So they also tend to believe that some form of reasoning is the source of this added information about the world. A bit about that. This article, if you want to read a bit about um, how nature and nurture may impact physical, intellectual, emotional, and development, I'll just share this link with you in the chat box. You can have a look at it. That's the end of my session. Just bear with me and I will just mark your attendance if that's okay. I'll stop the recording.